Hello and welcome to my video 3.3 Subtracting Rational Numbers. This is based off of topic 3.3 in the Math Makes Sense 9 textbook. So we are looking at subtracting rational numbers, and it's basically identical to the last topic, 3.2. So you can look at that video for other examples that are very similar. Those are adding, this is subtracting. Okay, so that's literally the only difference. So let's say we see this question, determine the difference. 7.9 minus 2.1. How do we get the answer? Well, what we will see here is that this is, first of all, if we're comparing to last topic, the exact same as adding negative 2.1. Okay, that's the same thing. And so, because it's the same thing, we already have done questions like this, no problem. The other thing to notice is that it's the same thing as 79 minus 21. Okay, the same process. So if we did 79 minus 21, we could write it like this. And if we do 7.9 minus 2.1, we also can write it like this. So 9 minus 1 is 8, 7 minus 2 is 5, so 58, or in this case 5.8. Okay, so really quite simple, based off of a lot of prior knowledge. Oops. So the only slightly more difficult version is, like you can imagine with higher number subtraction, is that you need to start carrying the 1. So if we have 7.3, not over, oops, 7.3 minus 2.5. Now, 3 minus 5, well, we can't do that. So instead, we're going to have 13 minus 5. And where are we getting that 1? Well, we're getting it from here. So 13 minus 5 is 8. 6 minus 2 is 4. So our answer is 4.8 in this case. So that's basically the entire difference, entire decimal version that we could see. Excuse me. But there could be other amounts of decimals, like there could be more than just 1 in the tenths place. Okay, now looking at fractions, it says determine the difference again, and we're going to look at this mixed fraction. So we've got 2 3/4, 2 and 3/4. So it's, if I were to draw it out as pizzas, it'd be 1, 2 pizzas, and then 3/4 of a pizza. Okay? And then this one would be the same thing, 1, 2, 3, but then 4th, 6th. Now let's see if I can draw a 4th, 6th. Third is like that. And 4th, 6th. There you go. So, anyways, if we're to draw it out, this would be our visual symbol to just show what that looks like. Okay, so it's a mixed fraction, which means we have 2 wholes on this one, and then 3/4. And here we have 3 wholes, and 4/6. Okay, so hopefully that helps just visualize it a little bit for you. Now there's 2 different ways of going about this. The first way is to go straight into making this a non-perfect fraction, or improper fraction, or whatever, where it's a number greater on top than what's on the bottom. So if we do that, 2, we want it to be over 4. So to make that true, we'd have 8 over 4. Okay, so just keep that piece of information in mind. I'm going to move that to the side. So 8 over 4 plus 3 over 4. That is what this whole side is. Okay? That's what that's showing. Now let's get a minus, and then on the other side, 3 is equal to 18 over 6. Okay, so on this side, 18 over 6 plus 4 over 6. Okay, and that is equal to this whole side. Okay, so maybe I'll leave those circled up like this. Okay, now if I add those together, I can make it a little bit more simple. So we have, sorry about this stupid keyboard, 11 over 4 minus over 22 over 6. Okay, and then we want to make them have common denominators. So common denominators means we have to multiply across. So we are going to multiply 6 on this side. So let's use red. So times 6 here and times by 4 here, just to make common denominators. So if we do that, we'll have 66 over 24 minus 88 over 24. And we can actually simplify that a little bit further before we move on, or we can just find the answer. Let's find the answer first, then let's simplify. So what we'll see here is 66 minus 88 is actually going to give us a negative number. Okay, it's going to give us a negative 22, and then it's all over 24. Simplified, that would be negative 11 over 12. Okay, so that is the improper fraction way of doing it. And let's move this to the side as well. Okay, so that's the improper fraction way of doing it. Now, this is another method of doing it, and neither is right. Oh, interesting. I didn't know I could do that. Neither way is right. It's just different, okay? And some ways will be faster in some cases, some ways will be faster in others. So what I do here is I see right away that 2 3/4 minus 3 4/6, I can see that I need to start canceling things out and seeing which side has more. So because I'm finding a difference here, it's negative, what I'm doing is I need to count up all my positive numbers and all my negative numbers and see which one wins in the end. Okay, so positive and negative, what wins in the end? I have 2 positives and I have 3 negatives. Okay, that's what I have to start with. Sorry about the keyboard. That's what I have to start with. And I also have some fractional thing. So if we're out of, and from before we can remember we can be out of 12. So it's out of 12. What would be, so 3 times 4 is 12. So 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so 9/12 on that side. And a negative 4/6 is 6 times 2, so 8. Alright, so here we can see that our negative 3 cancels out with the positive 2. So if you look at that, all we have left with is negative 1. Okay, and we have 9 over 12 minus 8 over 12, so then we have 1 over 12, and that's a positive number. Okay, so now we have this positive fraction and the negative 1. So now we need to simplify that a little bit further. And so if we have negative 1, it would be, making it out of the same common denominator, negative 12 over 12 plus 1 over 12, which then simplifies to negative 11 over 12, which is what we had before in our different method. So hopefully you can see that both methods work perfectly. Last thing is that if you're asked the difference between temperatures, sometimes it's not clear what it's actually asking you. And maybe I'll just shrink this down a little bit. So sometimes it's not super clear what it's asking. So this question reads, Edmonton is negative 10 degrees Celsius and Mexico City is 35 degrees Celsius. What is the difference in temperature between Edmonton and Mexico? So we have negative 10 all the way to 35. Now, if I count up, so my next number would be negative 9, negative 8, all the way so on to 35. What number would I get? Well, I would have 45. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. 35 minus negative 10 equals 45. Okay, that's a perfectly valid answer for this question. But the question isn't clear enough to tell you if this is the way you're doing it or if you're doing it this way. Negative 10 minus 35. It's not clear in the question which one you should do. So this one would be negative 45. So it depends on which one you start with. This one you're starting with Edmonton. This one you're starting with Mexico City. But it's not clear which one to start with from the question. So I just want to talk about the fact that sometimes a difference will default, or usually difference will default to a positive answer, but questions are sometimes not entirely clear. That's why we'll often give an equation for you, like that. Alright, hopefully that video helps you with the subtraction of rational numbers.